2 Kings, chapter 6, verse 24. And it came to pass after this, that Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all his host, and went up, and besieged Samaria. And there was a great famine in Samaria, and, behold, they besieged it, until an ass's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and the fourth part of a cab of dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver. Shalom. All praises, glories, and honors to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, B'Shem HaKadosh. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of great millstone who have taught in his truth, as well as men of like mind. Shalom wa chasad to the elect of the nation of Israel, or my so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, and Israelite foreigners of the sealand of our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who must get in America, which is Babylon the Great, and abroad. To you I say Shalom, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. This lesson is edifying. Famine is on the horizon, man. Okay, famine is on the horizon. Starvation is on the horizon. Now I'm going to play a short portion of this video by epic economist entitled Americans are panic buying lots of food as difficult times approaches. One of those difficult times is the times of the lack of bread, famine, starvation. Okay, so without further ado, I'll play just a small portion of the video, but I'll leave the link to the video in the description box.
These are on the rise one more time, with a pantry surge of up to 3,400%. In face of another spike of viral infections and a chaotic political scenery, many Americans already started to stock food for the winter, fearing the occurrence of shortages just as seen earlier this year. However, food prices are fast increasing, which unfortunately means that not everybody will have access to food products. In fact, a separate study has suggested that the United States is about to experience a hunger calamity, and over 54 million people could potentially face hunger until the end of the year. Today, we're going to investigate this very worrying matter and reflect upon the damaging effects it will pose to millions of households across the country. So please stay with us, leave a thumbs up on this video, share with friends, and please subscribe to our channel to keep informed about the most recent unfoldings of the United States economic collapse. Back in March, scared about the burst of the health crisis and social distancing measures, American consumers started to panic buy shelf-stable meals and cleaning products, leaving store shelves empty and unconsciously contributing to supply shortages. Now, grocery store owners have affirmed they're back again. In some locations, food makers had the time to prepare for the second surge in the stockpiling trend. But now that massive purchases have already started, they seem unsure about having enough to attend the demand. Big companies such as General Mills, the producer of Cheerios and Annie's boxed mac and cheese, integrated 45 external production lines through contractors since the first round of pantry loading during the spring. Campbell's Soup Company expanded its production of Goldfish crackers and is building capacity for chip brands such as Cape Cod, investing an additional $40 million to keep up with demand. Conagra Brands increased third-party manufacturing and warehousing, while Stonyfield Farm, a producer of organic dairy products, is purchasing more milk from its direct supply network of farms. By contrast, local production has been compromised by several natural disasters throughout the year, and also big manufacturers' orders for farmers to dump production and slaughter their animals due to contractual obligations. For its part, store supply in smaller cities or distant rural areas couldn't afford the same luxury of preparing in advance, considering many of them were never fully restocked since the first round of supply shortages. Meanwhile, major food producers are determined not to get caught off guard again, especially after calculating how much they've lost because they were unable to ramp up production fast enough in March when demand hit record highs. Since then,
I think the Epocrates app makes me a better physician because I have so much knowledge at my fingertips.
they've boosted their production of dried pasta and canned soups and used a calmer summer to reevaluate the new grocery landscape and rethink their approach, namely, their pricing strategy. But as the holiday season approaches, and big holiday feasts are a tradition to many American families, investors are questioning whether their efforts will be enough, given that they're currently observing how the second round of stockpiling has been quickly clearing shelves and consumer activity hasn't even peaked yet. During the spring, the share of sold-out packaged goods skyrocketed, and according to a recent survey by Centricity Inc., that's a platform that tracks online activity like searches and e-commerce, demand for items like baking goods has risen 3,400% from a year earlier in the 3 weeks through October 13th. Centricity's Chief Executive Officer, Mike Brackett, said despite this figure is less than the 6,000% upsurge that preceded the first wave of pantry loading, he expects this one to hit a wider range of products beyond canned goods and other staples. Brackett disclosed, in the last 3 to 4 weeks, we've seen very drastic increases, similar to how we did with the first wave of the virus outbreak. The current pantry restock is happening at the same time as U.S. hospitalizations have registered a 2-month high last week, with 37 states reporting a substantial jump in numbers. Latin America and Europe are also documenting increased cases, which might also influence future global supply chain disruptions. Even though some companies are insisting that they're better prepared than before, shortages persist in many places.
And shortages do in fact persist in many places, that is, in many some places across the U.S., due to the fact that thousands to millions of people have been buying up victuals. Hence the reason why we see local stores such as Dollar General, Family Dollar, Key Foods, your 99-cent stores, your local supermarkets, your restaurants, your mom and pop businesses are found wanting. The shelves are nearly too empty because a famine is on the horizon. 2 Ezra chapter 6 verse 22, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. And all these different storehouses and these different stores that Jake usually go to buy things that are so readily available are now appearing unsown. They're now being found empty. Okay? And then eventually, as time goes on, these stores will no longer be able to remain open due to the lack of inventory, meaning that they won't have the adequate food supply to sell to people in their local communities to remain open. Why? Because there's going to be a lack of truckers. Because you see, the truckers are the ones that bring the goods into the community so that they can restock the stores, so that the shelves of the stores can be restocked with goods. But all that is about to come to an end because they're going to shut down the cities again. They're going to block off the roads, the bridges. And once that happens, and your truckers can't come in to restock the stores, that which is in the stores are going to eventually go. And then the stores are going to be exhausted. And then people are going to start starving because there's not going to be any food left to buy. And then as time goes on, they'll eventually start committing different heinous acts just to eat. And then they'll start committing cannibalism. It says the full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. All your big storehouses, all your big stores, all that's going to be found empty. Now let's go back to the book of 2 Kings, to the account in our history. 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 24. And it came to pass after this that Ben-Hadad king of Syria gathered all his host and went up and besieged Samaria. And Samaria was the land where the northern kingdom had dwelt. The northern kingdom, together with the southern kingdom, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, are here in America, Babylon the Great, predominantly subject to our oppressors, the chief of them being Esau, Edom, the wicked, that the Bible speaks of the so-called Caucasian race, along with the heathen nations. And there was a great famine in Samaria, and there's going to be a great famine in America, Babylon the Great, especially in major cities such as Chicago, New York, because everything is going to be exhausted. Everything is also going to be locked down, thus preventing truckers from entering into the cities and then into local communities to restock these stores. And behold, they besieged it until an ass's head was sold for 80. And a score is 20. So 80 is 80 pieces of silver. And the fourth part of a cab of dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver. So it was so bad that an ass's head and dove's dung was being sold for silver, man. So that Jake back then can eat during that great siege. Imagine that. Think about that. An ass's head and bird shit, man. And if seeing that it was bad then, how much more so now? And all this is gonna come back in an unprecedented manner, because Jacob's trouble is gonna be a day like no other, man, ever in history. And as the king of Israel was passing by upon the wall, there cried a woman unto him, saying, Help, my lord, O king. And he said, If the Lord Yahweh do not help thee, whence shall I help thee? So he's basically saying, look, if the Lord is not helping you, then how am I going to help you? Out of the barn floor or out of the wine press? Right, because basically he was saying, look, we don't have any food or wine to eat nor drink. We're in a famine. And if the Lord is not helping you, then how am I going to help you? Seeing that it is all the judgment of Yahweh, Hashem Yahushai, upon them at that time. And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? So he basically asked her, following his last question, what's the matter? What's ailing you? And she answered, This woman said unto me, Give thy son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So she's basically telling the king of an agreement that she had with another woman that was basically broken by that woman. Okay? And the agreement was this, give thy son that we may eat him today. So in other words, she's saying, look, if you give me, the other one told her, look, if you give, let's eat your son today, and tomorrow we'll eat mine, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son. So the lady boiled her son that was speaking to the king that asked her, what aileth thee? So we boiled my son and did eat him. So just really think about that. You know what I'm saying? It was so bad that this woman boiled her own son for food. Check that out. And did eat him. And I said unto her on the next day, give thy son that we may eat him. And she had hid her son. So she basically supplanted her. She said, you know what? I'm gonna eat this lady's son, but I'm not gonna allow my son to be eaten. I'm gonna hide my son the next day for whatever she comes back to ask. So she pretty much supplanted her. And it came to pass when the king heard the words of the woman that he rent his clothes. So the king was like, oh my goodness. You know, he was bugging out. He was, in straits. And he passed by upon the wall, and the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth, which represented him mourning within upon his flesh. You could just picture that, man. So the Lord is going to bring back famine in a very great, big fashion, man. Now, is it wrong to go out there and buy food if you have the means to do so? No. That's just called using wisdom. However, when the time of trials and tribulation arises, we ought to have faith in Yahweh Shai as our forefathers, such as our forefather in the account, Elijah, our forefather Elijah, when the Lord had him go to the brook Cherith, where he had sent ravens to feed him, and he had the brook for water to drink. As a matter of fact, let's get the scripture and conclude the lesson here in the book of Sirach, chapter 2, verse 10. Look at the generations of old and see, did ever any trust in the Lord Yahweh Shai and was confounded? Or did any abide in his fear and was forsaken? Or whom did he ever despise that called upon him? For the Lord Yahweh Shai is full of compassion and mercy, long-suffering and very pitiful, and forgiveth sins and saveth in time of affliction. So the Lord is going to save the elect. You are they that's of the elect, or Zulayim of the elect, in the time of affliction, in the time of Jacob's trouble, in the time of famine, in the time when the Lord is going to appoint the four kinds over the sinners of his people. The Lord said we're going to laugh at famine. Okay? So, with that, I pray this lesson was edifying to the elect as well as exhorting. Until the next, Lord's willing, I say Shalom. Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Kakodash, Barakatam to the elect.